Unleash your creativity with the Micro Welder, episode 20. I'm going to show you how to make this ring cluster necklace with drops. Let me start by saying we want to be able to find a wire that is thin enough to go through the drill hole of your bead. Now, you also want it thick enough so that it's not too difficult to weld and also that it will keep its shape. In this case, I have 24 gauge gold-filled wire, and it's important to note that with gold-filled, when you weld it, eventually there will be a slight dark mark. I'm not sure if you can see it, like this. It's tiny, and that is basically the brass core being exposed over time to moisture, and it darkens. With this style, you can do this with gold filled because you can actually hide the dark mark. So here I've got sterling silver, and once I've got it welded, and I didn't use argon gas and I didn't clean it just to demonstrate for you, like here. Eventually I'm just going to tuck it in, and I'm going to show you this with clear because you think that you could see it, but the drill hole is a bit frosted. You can't see the dark, any sort of discoloration. And you move it in like this, and then we're going to hammer to either side so that it stays by widening the sides. But you do want the hole to be big enough so that you can actually twirl it, move it to wherever you need to go without making the sides a little bit crookedy. So the size of the hole is rather important. Now let's talk about how to make these circles. You can purchase a jumper maker, and there's some really good ones out there. Or you can simply, if you're not doing many, find the circumference of, or the diameter of a circle, dowling. You can use pens if you want there to be facets, triangular shape. The only thing is, it's really important that it's not graduated, because unless you want the different circle sizes, so this marker is tapered at the end. Don't use that. Use things that are straight. And the other thing is, it's preferable, if it's not already tempered, if your wire is soft, to use a section that is smooth, because it twirls more smoothly the circle. Or if you have only crookedy wire, straighten it out first, and you can temper it on the hammering block. I've got other videos to show that. Straighten it out, and then what you can do is wrap it, hold on to it with a bit of tension, wrap, but wrap it in a perpendicular way as opposed to diagonally. When you do it diagonally, it turns into oval and it is a lot bigger. So you want to do this, and I don't know how many I'm going to do. I'm just going to make a bunch in case I have some fails. And I only want to do a necklace, so I don't need that many. Basically, now you've got a bunch of loops that are pretty much the same size. You make it tight like this, and then depending on whether or not you care to waste, I'm just going to then hold on to this, use a marker, and this part is really important because as soon as you release your wire, it goes into different lengths, and you can see the dots are all over the place. But since the dots are there, all I have to do now is follow where the dots are and I cut. Now I have 6 of these rings. Each of these rings are the same size, same diameter. Don't worry that some seem to be not circular, open like this. You'll weld it and you can then fashion a bit more closely. But notice that if they're all really crookedy, I've straightened out the wire first, or while I am using the dowling, I wrap it around and I smooth it out on that. That helps a lot. Another thing to consider. So I want to do a cluster necklace like this. If it is the case that I want the stones to be side to side like this, I will have to connect some rings here, because if I was just to do it like this, what will end up happening is that when it is not lying flat, if it was lying flat against the chest, that is fine. But if it was an earring, one would face one way. I'm going to show you from a different angle. I'm going to illustrate what I mean when planning on your loops and when you add the drops. Here, these drops are flat. What happens is, if you're doing every ring with a drop, if it's free hanging, you'll see the top ones on the side, unless they are fully puffy drops. If it is, so an earring, you'll run that risk if it bothers you. Whereas if you are wearing them as a necklace and it's against the neck, they will be flat like this. So you can actually do one every ring if you wish. Plan it properly. So let's talk about now planning. I'm going to move things around. And say, for instance, I know if I was going to do every one per, if they were to hang as a necklace, it would end up looking a lot like this, where they would look flat like this. And I'm not sure if I like that. I could also change it up to different colors, maybe like this as a pendant. Or if I wanted to have them hang like such on the side, like this, I would add jump ring here, and this will be forced to go to the side like this. So I don't mind that. And also, if it is a case that actually I want some more variation, at the very end, I could make some of these jump rings slightly smaller as I go. And after some deliberation, I think I'm going to go with this. If it is the case that I'm connecting these rings with smaller rings, I'm going to use solid gold so as to avoid the little speckle of black. So let's get started. First order of business. The wires, you'll see one side looks flush and the other side beveled, and that is because I used a flush cutter. And one side here is flush, and then the other side is to a point, and you don't want to do that when welding. You want a maximum amount of touching. See, there's a gap right there. So all you have to do is take your cutters, flip them around like this, and just a little bit like this. Trim. Okay, so you want it touching. And if it is a case that they're not touching very well because of the bend, all you have to do is bend them like this. Even if the top is flat, weld it and we can adjust later. I always like to start from the bottom and move my way up when it comes to drops, because you can see how the weight and how it will hang and adjust accordingly. So here I've got this, and I'm pretty happy with the way they're touching, and I'm going to weld. When welding, really good idea to have 2 pairs of pliers as opposed to be lazy and having your hand close by, because the wire can get hot. Make sure it's touching, and then I go up. By the way, I think I had it adjusted for the silver. Okay. And there I have this. I didn't use argon gas. It got turned off. And it's always good to have, but not necessary. If there's a ball, that's okay. Simply use your pliers to flatten. If it becomes too much for you to be, and you're unable to slide this back in this way, file it down. But eventually we want to hide it like this. Okay, just to give you an idea, I'm going to use bristle brush. And it cleans very easily. And eventually this little dot here might get dark with oxidation, and we want that to be hidden. And we will hammer and fix this so that it doesn't move. By the way, because I'm still undecided as to whether or not I want a jump ring here, I'm going to mock it up with a jump ring and see how things will hang. So I've got a little jump ring here that I know. So if it was a necklace, it would be off to the side. Now, without this jump ring, it will look like this. And I think I like it better without the jump ring. So I'm going to cut that off. Okay, so I'm ready for the next one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut the bevel side. Oops. So now both sides are flush. I'm going to make sure it's going to look like that. And it's pretty good. If, like I was saying, they don't meet very well, all you have to do is press down with a pair of pliers. Now they meet much better, see? Okay, I'm going to weld this, but I am going to loop this one in. There we go. Very simple. So this is up next, and I was looking at this, and I'm not sure if I like both of these being identical. So I went and got another stone. I prefer this so that there aren't 2 out of 3 that are identical. So we're going to do this, and right now I am not sure if I want all 3 of them to be the same size of loop. So I'm bending this slightly smaller, and I think I like that better. So what I'm going to do is see if it's going to be a problem. It's not going to be a problem if I was to weld and then shift this over. So what I'm going to do is cut it quite a bit smaller. And I'm sure you can plan it better, but I'm just going to wing it. Free form like this and make it smaller. Okay, here we go. I'm going to bend this, coax this, both of these sides like this, and then I'm going to weld. Okay. Make sure that both sides are touching first. Okay. That looks pretty good. Now, let's see if perfect. And maybe I don't want it to be oval like this. Maybe I do. So I'm going to think about it and then form it before hammering. So I've decided that actually for the purpose of this video, I'm going to make these circular, even though I like organic far more. And this is what we're going to do. You can use something, you jam it this way and just turn. And already it is a lot rounder. You see? We're going to do it for all 3 of them, and then we're going to hammer. So this is what I've got so far. And with this, I want it to be hidden. Here's a dot, hidden here. What I'm going to do is use my pliers to move things along. Maybe use this so that I can get it to be somewhat rounded like this. Remembering where it is, I'm going to move it there, and then I'm going to hammer. And the hammering will flatten and make it wider and keep the stone from moving. So how we're going to do this is move it to the side so that the stone is over the dark mark. And we hammer. Let's see if you can see a close-up. It widens it like this. And I can continue. With gold filled, it's okay to hammer and it will not tarnish. With plated, it will be a problem. Move it to the side. It would have helped actually if I used thicker wire, because now I have to flatten it quite a bit. But you see the difference. Closer look. And if it is a case that, in like what I've done, where it has, my wire is too thin, and this happens to be a very big hold bead, I can just bend it, kink either side a little bit to keep it still. So you can do that by even so much as holding either side of it as close to the bead as possible and just pulling a little bit so that it is, the idea is that it's more of a V now, and this will not shift more easily. The other thing you can do is, say if this is delicate and you don't have a hammering block or you're not feeling comfortable, you can use your pliers to flatten out. On either side. Here, this is what I mean. You can flatten it out so much that, see, it cannot shift away. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, but gently. So I'm going to go through all three of them like this. And I like the texturing, and I like leaving bits that where I want it to hang naturally to be smoothened. So this is where I'm at right now. I could simply put it through a chain like this. It'll be very pretty. By the way, I could certainly wear these as earrings, but also, if you're doing this, you also have the option, especially when you have lots, is to do a cluster necklace. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to weld a small ring onto it so it does not move beyond these beads. Here I've got a 4mm jump ring, and I'm going to make sure that it's centered like this. So, and I'm going to this. There it is. I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, please like and subscribe. It really does help my algorithm. And let me know in the comments what city you live in and where you're tuning in from.